Mr. Boombastic, Locked On SEC. How are you, Chris Gordy?
What's going on, David? How's it going, man?
I'm good, man. So, obviously when we get you on the show, we like to go all around the SEC. You know it. But I'm going to ask you a question about college football. Is anybody really good this year?
Yeah, I think there are some very good teams this year. Don't get me wrong. The problem is I think you're starting to see a little bit of the COVID after effect of 50-year, 6-year seniors coming back. I mean, you were at SEC Media Days. How many guys did you guys sit down with and go, 50-year seniors sitting down with us? I mean, you're seeing so many guys that came back to not the big schools. Like we're just used to Ohio State dominating, Clemson dominating, all the big dogs. And I think what you're starting to see is a little bit more of a balance. You're starting to see Oregon goes into Ohio State and beats them. You're starting to see Oklahoma kind of struggle with some teams week in and week out. So I think it is a little bit more balanced this year. There are some good teams. Look, it's all going to level out. A little bit of overreaction 3 weeks into the season, but no, there are some very good teams. There are some very good teams right here in the SEC.
All right, Chris, let's talk a little bit about A&M here to start off with, obviously, our fan base and what we cover. Are you still as high on them as you were before the season?
I'm slipping a little bit. I mean, it's the Haynes King injury threw me for a loop. Zach Calzada, just how he looked in that Colorado game. Granted, made some gutty plays down the stretch. They don't win that game if he doesn't make those plays. But few concerns with me if I'm A&M, especially this week. Against Arkansas, Zach Calzada cannot make any mistakes. He's got to make some safe throws. Like you said, throw that ball into the tight window. I thought last week against New Mexico was a good confidence builder for him. I thought he made some great throws. Moose Muhammad, by the way, that's my man crush now of the season for A&M. But I'm concerned A&M has not been able to dominate running the ball yet. When you look at, basically what they're able to do week in and week out, they're 46th in the country rushing yards per game. You're behind just in the SEC, Florida, Ole Miss, Auburn, Kentucky, Arkansas. So A&M's got to run the ball better. I know they talked about it yesterday. Isaiah Spiller saying we got to do a better job. We're trying to find the home run ball. We're trying to hit the big run. We just need to get those 5-6 yards a clip and get back to dominating. And then if I'm A&M stopping Arkansas this week, man, I really consider loading the box. I mean, Mike Elko's done a tremendous job defensively so far this year, but I make KJ Jefferson have to test me down the field. He's not done it consistently this year. I have not been impressed with him so far. I have been impressed with the way Arkansas has been able to run the ball. They're 8th in the country rushing yards per game. The way they just dominated running the ball against Texas, I thought was a little bit of an eye-opener. So if I'm A&M defensively, I really consider just coming up, loading the box, and dare KJ Jefferson to throw deep on me.
All right, so is Arkansas more the team we saw against Texas, which was able to run the ball at will, and maybe Texas isn't as good as we thought? Or are they more like the team that was trailing Rice in the third quarter? Like who are they? Are they somewhere in between?
They're somewhere in between. I mean, granted, I picked them to win that Texas game just because I thought the rockin' atmosphere, the home crowd, and all that was going to play a factor. And I know you guys were talking about it earlier this morning. The neutral field game, look, it's got to go. I mean, I know, is it going to be harder for A&M to go to Fayetteville and win games in the future? Yes, but you get the advantage back home playing College Station with your home crowd there. I get why they did it. I understand the contract runs for a couple more years. We need to get back to playing these games on college campuses because that's what the pageantry is of college football. And that's what makes it more exciting. That said, I think there is no edge here in Dallas. I think A&M could go out there and take care of their business. And I think they'll have a chance to show that they are the better team, which I still do believe they are the better team. But again, I'm concerned about that Arkansas run attack. And if they play keep away and they're able to keep moving the chains and keep it a low scoring game, I think that's advantage Arkansas.
So what is Sam Pittman doing to get Arkansas to play at this level? Because I think from a talent perspective, they are inferior to some of the top teams in the SEC. They have some catching up to do, but yet they're playing for them like they are a team, one of those top teams.
Yeah, I mean they're doing it with an outstanding offensive line. I mean the offensive line that they've created is really, really good there. It's a brick wall. They brought back just about everybody from last year's offensive line. I think even the backups too. So they've done a great job of forming that wall and opening up the holes for their run game. Again, I've not been impressed with how they've used one of their best weapons in Treylon Burks. Like this guy is one of the most speediest guys out there. He scores on a 91-yard touchdown pass last week. he finishes with 3 catches for 127. Like, how do you not utilize that guy more? If he scores on a 91-yard play, you know what the guy should have? 200 yards on the day, because you should keep going back to him. And for whatever reason, they've not been able to do that at Arkansas. And so very inconsistent. Look, I like their defense. Barry Odom has done a really good job. They've got guys all over the place making tackles, from Grant Morgan to Bumper Poole, to the best tacklers in the SEC. Pretty good secondary led by Jalen Catalon. But again, this is the game to me that if I'm Jimbo Fisher, I'm telling Zach Calzada, do not make the safe throws. Dump it off to we'll run some crossing routes to Jalen Wademeyer. Hit him. Get your confidence going. Dump it off to Nia Smith when it's not there. But we'll take some shots. But, man, don't force it if it's not there, because Arkansas will capitalize. They'll get those picks. And, man, if they get that momentum going, it may be advantage Arkansas.
Chris Gordy with us here. He's on Locked On SEC Podcast, also iHeartRadio. So let's talk about some of the other games in the SEC. Just, were you surprised how close the Florida-Alabama game was, even though we know that Dan Mullen, for some reason, gets that Florida team that played Alabama tight? Were you surprised by the way this one came, especially knowing the week prior how Florida looked?
I kept going back and forth last week because I had friends in the swamp telling me, look, man, this game is sold out. This place is going to be rocking. And when Alabama jumped out to the early lead, you went, well, that's out the window. But they were able to make some plays and get some momentum going. And I just have to wonder, David, Anthony Richardson, had he played in this game, I think Florida wins that game if Anthony Richardson plays. He is such a dynamic game changer. If you look at the plays he's made so far just this year, every time he touches the ball, something special happens. And it's no disrespect to Emory Jones, because he played a hell of a game in the second half. But I just wonder, man, if they had that added component of Anthony Richardson in there, I think Florida wins that game over Alabama. And if you want to go real conspiracy theory here, I think they played it safe, knowing this game doesn't matter in the standings. You lose to an SEC West team, that doesn't matter. The game that matters for Florida is in a few weeks when they play Georgia. And I think kind of when you go in your mind, if you're in the mind of Dan Mullen, you think, man, if we play Richardson against Alabama, maybe he helps us win this game, but maybe he tweaks that hamstring even worse, and he's out 4, 5, 6 weeks. I think they're thinking, let's play it safe. We need Richardson to beat Georgia in a few weeks. Just conspiracy theorists, but I think maybe that was part of their thinking.
By the way, did I see Richardson do a backflip before the game? Is that who I saw do that? If I'm just going to go ahead and say this out loud, Chris, you respond to it. If you're able to do a backflip at a game, before the game, you are healthy enough to play in that game. I don't know who made the decision, if it's Richardson, the medical staff, but if you're doing that, I mean, you should be able to play.
Yeah, I think Richardson was doing that to send a message to the coaching staff and the trainers, hey, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And they just said, no, we're playing it safe. But no, he's done that the last couple games. He does a backflip before the guy's like, what, 6'3", 6'4", yeah. He's huge. And he's doing backflips to show his athleticism. I mean, he runs like a 4.2. It's incredible what this guy is. He's going to be a future stud in the SEC. Don't get me wrong. Like, Tim Tebow, look out. Anthony Richardson is going to be that level hype over the next couple of years. But man, I just really wish he had played in that game. I would have liked to have seen Alabama get an early season loss.
Chris, let's talk a little Penn State Auburn, and I'm trying to understand. Penn State's played Wisconsin, and obviously Auburn was a top 25 team. But is Penn State that good, or is Auburn really not that good? Yet they played Penn State tight. Like, I'm trying to understand where both teams really are in the pecking order.
Auburn's not that good. I couldn't believe. I made a statement last week about an unranked Auburn team going into Penn State, and somebody said, no, they're ranked. I said, wait, what? Like, and I don't pay attention to the rankings this early in the season because it's largely irrelevant. But I'm like, why in the hell is Auburn ranked in the top 25? This is a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. They're expected to be a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. You just fired your coach a few months ago. You got a new head coach in there. So I had to go at some Penn State fans this week on social media. They were just touting their chest. They acted like they won the college football playoff after that game. And don't get me wrong, like, celebrate a win, but my God, keep it in context. They thought they beat Alabama. Like, I think in their mind, they accidentally switched up Alabama and Auburn because that's who they thought they beat was Alabama. And don't get it twisted either. They're a 4th down play away from possibly tying this game and sending it to overtime. So don't act like you dominated Auburn by any means. They were right there knocking on the door, about to score, get a 2-point conversion, send this thing to OT. So it is what it is. I think Auburn is a middle-of-the-pack team. They've brought back some players on the defense. Roger McCreary is really good in the secondary. But I think Bo Nix, we saw it. He is not taking that next step that he's supposed to, and he just is what he is. And I think at the end of the year, we're going to look back and see Auburn finish fourth, maybe even fifth in the West, and they'll be exactly what I thought they'd be, a 6-6, 7-5 type team that gets to a bowl game, but just not a great team.
All right, so how about Clemson? Just give me some thoughts on Clemson, a team that I mean, defensively we know they're great, but offensively they have no clue at the moment.
Yeah, I'm really surprised by that. I mean, I think it starts with their offensive line, and we heard a couple of their players come out yesterday and say, "Yeah, we're frustrated. We're not where we're supposed to be." And it's weird because he's done such a good job of recruiting. But somebody brought up to me that the backup quarterback spot is a little iffy there with Clemson. I think they had one kid transfer, another kid's hurt. So what they're trying to do is protect DJ Uiagalelei and not get him injured. So they're calling safe plays and they're like not being bold in their play calling with him. Like, utilize his talents. He's really good when he gets out in space and is able to run and all that. So I think they're being overprotective and it's hurting them. It's hurting the play calling. It's hurting the offense. So I get where Dabo's coming from. If he goes down, your season is really screwed. But man, you got to unleash the kid and let him utilize all of his best talents. And let's be honest, Clemson doesn't play anybody really the rest of the year. So they can play mediocre offense, coast through the rest of the season, and probably be knocking on the door of the playoff at the end of the year.
Gordy, last thing for you, LSU, Mississippi State. Have we figured out LSU yet? I mean, because, there are a lot of teams that have struggled this year, and a loss to UCLA doesn't sound as bad now, but then they lose to Fresno State. So I guess, where are we with LSU?
LSU just played their most complete game of the year, and I know it was Central Michigan, but they didn't play that well against McNeese the week before. So you got to take that into context. But they played their best game of the season. If they can play like that this weekend at Mississippi State, man, the next week they get Auburn at night in Tiger Stadium. That place is going to be rocking, and LSU could string together a bunch of wins here if they're able to do it. But man, they have got to show defensive improvement. All those crossing routes that they gave up against UCLA looked a lot like the bad defense last year. They cannot do that against this Mike Leach offense this week. And if they can go into Starkville and get the early morning win on Saturday morning, man, this fan base and this team will be very excited to come back home and host Auburn a week later, who, by the way, has not won in Tiger Stadium in 20 years. So going to be a lot of fun. If you lose to Mississippi State, season done. LSU probably going to lose 5-6 games.
Yeah, but by the way, I think even though Mississippi State had a hiccup here, I don't think they're as bad as some people say. Do you?
Will Rogers has been fantastic. I mean, outside of Matt Corral and maybe Bryce Young, like, he's been a really, really good quarterback in this league. Hasn't turned it all over a lot, thrown a bunch of touchdowns. Granted, I think he threw 67 balls this past week, so eventually that arm's going to get sore and tired. But no, I mean, Mississippi State, I would not be surprised if they win this game. And I don't know where the Vegas line is now, but wouldn't be surprised if they were about a 1-2 point favorite by the end of the week. But we'll see. I think this is a big spot for Mike Leach. If Mike Leach loses this game, send up the red alert, the sirens. I think Mike Leach on his way out of the SEC by the end of this year.
Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Anytime, dude.